Grand Rising, loved ones. Welcome back to another episode of Healing Wisdom with me, your favorite spiritual advisor, Empress Oracle. So today I'm going to talk to you guys about toxicity. Is it an acquired taste? Can we do something about it? We're going to talk about that. First and foremost, I'm going to go ahead and give you guys the definition of toxicity before we begin, because a lot of people throw around, the word toxic and everything, but do you really know what it means? Because some people, I feel like they're just saying it because it's trendy, because, you have words of the season and whatnot or whatever, but you really should know what you're talking about. So here we go. Okay. So toxicity, there's two definitions for toxicity, actually. The first one is the quality, state, or relative degree of being poisonous. The second definition is an extremely harsh, malicious, or harmful quality. And that pretty much sums it up. That's the same thing that I would say if I was to explain toxicity, okay? And the thing with that is sometimes people are toxic and they don't even realize that they're being toxic, okay? And then it becomes a vicious, ugly ass trait. And you always end up in these toxic ass cycles. And a lot of times people feel like they end up in cycles with people who are toxic, but they don't realize that they may be toxic themselves, because like attracts like. And a lot of times the people that we come across tend to be reflections of ourselves. Now, sometimes they can be reflections of our light, and sometimes they may be reflections of our shadow side. The skeletons in the closet, the parts that we need to work on and whatnot. Whatever the case may be, you need to be able to identify it, because for some people, ignorance is bliss. And we have seen that. We have seen that going on lately. However, though, some people are ignorant of things, traits, and certain facts just because their environment, or some people just don't know how to seek the knowledge, or they don't realize they weren't made aware of it because everybody around them is toxic as well. So it's normal. But that doesn't mean that it's okay, and that does not mean that it can be changed, and that does not make you a bad person. Just because you may have toxic traits, that does not make you a bad person. That makes you human. And the fact that you can identify them, that makes you mature. Okay, so also, from my perspective, something else that I want to add about toxicity is this little note that I had to write down to make sure that I got everything lickety-splack up in there for y'all, okay? So anything done to invoke a negative state of being or feeling in someone or a situation can be considered toxic. Boom! Did y'all know that? Yeah. So that right there, that's real spit. That's real spit. Some examples of that, in case you guys don't know, I will give you some examples. So let's say you're in a relationship, whether it's a heterosexual relationship, homosexual relationship, whatever floats your boat, you and your dog, whatever, y'all in a relationship. Okay. If one person is leading the other person on, that's toxic. Okay? Breadcrumbing people, that's toxic. If you're in a relationship with somebody and 1 minute you're giving them your all, and then the next minute you scale it back in order for them to chase you, that's you trying to control their emotions and stuff, that is toxic. That is toxic. And a lot of times people do that in relationships, and a lot of times they don't even really realize that they're doing it. People tend to have a problem with communicating. A lot of times people just don't know how to say, hey, I would like some attention. Pay me some attention. Show me some affection. Give me some love. Instead, they go ahead and they do these things which are toxic. Those are toxic traits. If you do things to rile up somebody, to piss somebody off just for them to pay you attention, that is toxic. And then it becomes a cycle because you do it all the time instead of just saying, hey, I would like some attention. Cut the middleman out. You feel me? Another example would be, say, in a social situation. If you are that person where every time you go out with any group of friends or anything, you always get into it with somebody. Always get into it. You can't never have a peaceful outing out. Always some shit. It seems like it's just shit just clings to you like a magnet. You are toxic. There is something about you or your energy that needs to be cleansed so you stop attracting those things, because as we said, like attracts like, right? There is absolutely no reason why you can't go out and have an ass clapping good time and not clap nothing but some ass. You feel me? Exactly. Another trait that can be considered toxic is a person who always seems to be on their political campaign. Everything is a debate with them. Everything. You cannot have a general conversation with this person without them somehow turning it into a debate, somehow finding something negative in the situation to argue about and debate about. And then when you call them about it, they say, oh, I'm not arguing, it's just a debate. They're toxic. People like that form of toxicity is them not being satisfied with how they view things or what they see around them. So therefore, they always have to point out the flaws in others and other things in order to make themselves feel better. That is toxic. Instead, that person should try to be more of an optimist, look at the glass as half full, okay? Look at the brighter side. I'm not saying just ignore all the bullshit. No. You can't do that. You cannot do that, because I'm glad you brought that up. As a matter of fact, that could be considered a toxic trait as well if you always choose to ignore the harsher side of situations, or you always choose to ignore the elephant in the room of a situation and do something else, ignoring that, because then it just festers and it culminates into something else and it blows up eventually, and you have to keep on going through that cycle with everything. I mean, you know, toxic can also be considered passive aggressive in certain type of ways and situations. A lot of passive aggressive people have toxic traits, okay? Because instead of facing their problems or the situations, you know, up front, they choose to go around and do the subliminals and build up other things, which it ends up coming out eventually. Toxic traits. Alrighty, what else? What else we have? I think that's about it for my notes, but I can go on for myself about the toxicity. It's at an all-time high. And toxicity is poisoning not only our minds, but our children, because we are teaching our children, because children are like sponges. And what people don't tend to realize is that actions speak louder than words. So if you are being that toxic person, your kids see it. Regardless, you can't tell them do as I say, not as I do, because they want to be just like you, regardless. And those patterns and those cycles that you do, they see you doing them with people. You probably do it with them. And guess what they're going to do? Exactly. So when you are in a situation and you notice that it is poisonous, get out of it. Because if not, it's going to turn toxic. You can see the red flags. You can see when people display the toxic traits. If somebody is breadcrumbing you off top, they're toxic. It's only going to get worse. People, stop ignoring red flags that show toxic traits in people, situations, or things. Don't tell yourself, oh no, that's not it. When you see that, address it. Just address it. Just address it. If the person wants to change, they will. If you want to stop being toxic, you can. Because let me tell you something. Some of this shit I'm telling y'all, I realized it myself, and I was like, damn, boo, you toxic. You feel me? So, you know, you have to fix it. That's all. We're human. Identification is part of the problem. Alrighty? And toxicity can also become an acquired taste. The longer you go along with it, the more you get used to it. And as I said, like attracts like. And when you have a tendency to let people get away with their toxicity, or when you have a tendency to stay in toxic situations, or if you have a tendency to always just kind of end up culminating toxicity around you, it's always going to be drawn to you. Always. That's not the way you want to live. especially not now. You know, we see just looking around in society what toxicity has done to us, what it is doing to us, and what it will continue to do if we don't make the change. Alrighty? Trust me. Anytime I notice myself beginning to get a little toxic or a situation starting to get a little toxic, I take a step back. I talk to myself. I say, self, and she be like, yo, what's good? And I'm like, yo, what the fuck is this? How can we fix this? And then from there, you move forward. And it's okay. It's okay. We're humans. We're human nature. Shit happens. But the thing is, once you realize something is toxic, you have to fix it. You know, a lot of poisons, it takes time to build up in your system. It takes time. So while you see that toxicity building, you have a chance. You dig? Anyway, that's all I had to say to you guys. Don't be toxic. All right? I love you.